Hey everybody, this is White Bone Knives, and today I have a jig here that we're going to be making for knife making, and it's just going to be out of some angle iron and a little tap on the screw, or a tap and screw to go in to adjust your angle of which bevel that you want. So, well, we're just going to go ahead and get started on how to make it. Alright, I'm just using some angle iron I had out in the garage. And you might want to check, I already checked this before, and this is square on the outside perimeter. So you're going to want to make sure that that's square, 90 degrees. And I've already checked this, so it is, and that's what we're going to use. And we're going to go ahead and cut it off at about 8¼ inches. I marked it right here. So we'll have that much of a jig to play with. So to cut it out, we're just going to use a angle grinder with a cutoff wheel, and we'll get started. So, and by the way, use some sort of safety protection, respirator, and a face mask before you do anything like this. A lot of little metal shavings you don't want to get in your system, or metal dust, so be wary, wear those, and well, grind away. So here we go. Okay, we cut into that side. Now we're just going to flip it over. Cut the rest of it. Okay, now that we have that cut out, we're looking at a small piece like this. That's what we want. That's about 8¼ inches. So now what we're going to do is we're going to clean up these edges right here. And I'm going to do that on my grinder. I'm just going to use that and make these little edges nice and square. So we'll go ahead and do that real fast. Okay guys, now that we're at our grinder, we just want to put a square up here to make sure that it's all square. And you don't really have to do this step, but I do. It just cleans it up, makes it look nice. So we'll just go ahead and do that. So I just put my square up here. It's all square, ready to go. And now we can go ahead and commence on grinding it. Alrighty, now we have a nice little edge right there, and you might have seen I just dipped it in the water real fast, and that was just because it was getting a little hot. So, but now we have some nice square edges to deal with. Looks a little bit nicer, and now we can start on shaving these down to a nice square side. Like, there's a little bit of paint on there, and we want to get those down to a real flat surface. So it'll be nice and flat when you go to make your bevels. It'll be really precise, and that's what we're trying to go for with the jig. So, alright, I'll get that set up for you, and then we'll go from there. Okay, now that we got our tool rest off there, we're ready to start sanding the flats of the jig. And what we're going to do is just tack on this little magnet so we can hold it a little bit easier. And then we're just going to shove this right up on there and sand that whole side flat. And then when we're done with that side, we're just going to put it on the other side and then do this side of the jig. So we'll get started on that. By the way, guys, I'm using an old worn out belt. That's why it's taking a little bit longer, but I don't really want to use one of my really nice belts that I use for knives, so I'm just using a worn out belt. Still gives the same process, it just takes a little bit longer. It's getting to be a really flat surface now, but I just kind of want to take the rest of the paint off there, just so it looks a little bit nicer. But I'm also dipping this in water, and it's not because you have to worry about anything critical to the jig. It's just that I am dipping it so my hands won't get really, really hot. So it's just a comfort thing, and if you have a fresher belt, likely you're not going to have to dip it very much. So this is just what I'm doing. But alright, we'll get started on the rest of it. Alrighty, that's kind of what we're ending up with. And I'm just going to go over it again with just a really light pass. That way it kind of smooths out everything. And then we'll go ahead and hit it with a finer grit belt. Okay, now that we cleaned it up on that, we're going to go and move to a finer grit belt. And you don't necessarily need this style of belt or anything, but I just use a Norton Norax, and it's at a 200 grit. So just put that on there, and then sand her down. Now that we have that side all done, nice flat surface, and here's where you might want to check on your tool rest if it's flat, but I mean, this is the full length of my platen. I know it's flat, so we'll just go ahead and start the other side. And you can do both sides first on the larger grit belt first, but for the video's sake, I'm just showing you in steps. So we'll just go ahead and put that other belt back on, and we'll do this side. So we got that side done. We're just going to move over to the 200 grit Norax belt and shine it up a bit. Also smooth out the unevenness. And now we're just going to go ahead and grind it up. Alrighty, now we got both sides cleaned up, and they're both flat. And now we can go ahead and start drilling. So we'll get that set up for you, and we'll move to that station. Alright guys, so now we're just going to mark our center line of this jig, and we're going to put a hole in it. So it's about 8 1/16. So we're just going to go 4, and then just about half of the 16th. So now we're just going to move this on up just a hair. And we're going to go ahead and just take a punch and punch in right there at that location. So just take our punch, stick it right there. Sorry for the camera wobble, but that's what we want right there. Just that little punch. So that way when we drill it, the drill bit won't walk off that and get all funky. It does make it function a little bit better because when you're sliding this across your tool rest, you don't want your bolt to go over your tool rest and fall off. So I find that the center is usually about the best to do. So we're going to go ahead and start drilling. Alright guys, so now we're at the drill press, and we want to use a tap that's 5/16. It'll fit a 5/16 bolt, and then we're going to have an 18 threads per inch cut on there. So that way it'll fit this bolt right here, and that's the one that we're going to use. So to get that to line up, and well, I mean, you can see right here that these line up together. The grooves fit in perfect. It's just another way to check. But to get that for the 5/16, we're going to use a 17/64 drill bit. So that's just the right size that we're using, and we're just gonna put this in the chuck and tighten it down. Now we'll put on some safety equipment, and you guys are gonna want to put this into something you can clamp down. I'm just not going to, because I've drilled through this before, and you should always treat safety as number one, but this is what I'm doing. So I'm taking a risk here of it grabbing and tossing around, but normally just go ahead and put your piece into a vise or something, clamp it down in some way. But that's just what I'm gonna do, so just be careful, guys. Alrighty, so we drilled that out, and this stuff is actually pretty soft, and I mean, I was able to drill through it and without too much fear of it catching, but just be safe when you're doing this and clamp it down. But okay, so now we have our drilled hole, and now we can tap it. Okay guys, now I just took our jig here, our piece of angle iron, and I put it in a vise. And now I just have a little setup here for the tap. And once again, this is a 5/16 tap and 18 threads per inch. And we're just going to start tapping it into this hole. And you want to try to get it as 90 degrees as you can. Just thread it in there. There, she's starting to bite. Alright, relieve some of the cut. I don't know if you can see. Sorry. Just gonna keep turning it. And back off. Come at it again. Back off. And when you back off, it lets those chips fall down through that hole. So just keep going. Alright, back off. Come back here. Again, back off. Pull it through again, back off. Pull it through. Just keep turning it. And by now, it's all the way through. So, we're just going to unthread it here real careful. Okay. So now that we have our hole threaded, you guys can see the threads right there. Now we can go ahead and put the screw in there and check and make sure that it fits. Sorry, not screw, but bolt rather. We're just gonna thread it in here, see if she works, and it looks like indeed it does work. It's going right through there, just nice. And but you're also gonna need a little nut to go on that bolt before you put it down. And you just thread it through, and then come right over here on your jig, put it into your jig. Okay, so this is how you're going to set your bevels. When you pull it out, you make a more flat grind. So let me see if I can show you guys here. When I put this out, it changes the angle of the jig to make a more shallow grind. But if I come back down, it lets me make a longer grind, like a full flat grind, like something that you'd see on a chef's knife. So, but if you wanted a Scandi or something, you'd put it out all the way, or until your desired length. And it's all give and take. If you want a more shallow grind, you'll have a tougher edge. If you want a full flat grind with a longer bevel, then you'll have something that can slice better. And that's why you see a lot of chef's knives have their grind come all the way up on the blade. But when you find the right bevel or the right angle that you want, you just cinch this nut down on there, and you can tighten it with just a wrench or something, whatever. And then when you want your knife to sit in here, all you do is put it on here and then clamp it up, and then you can proceed to do your bevel. So I'll show you what that's all about a little bit here in a second, but right now we're just going to work on making the head of that bolt a little bit more friendly to our machine. So we're going to sand this down just a hair, and we'll basically back it out and then tighten this down a little bit, and then we're just going to sand that flat with the entire jig. So we'll set that up real fast. Okay guys, now that we're at our grinder, we're just going to take this little protruding bolt right here and sand it flat to the rest of the jig. So we're just going to go ahead and turn the grinder on. So we took that down, and now it's completely flat with the bottom. And now we're going to move down to the next stage on the belt. So let's change that out real fast, just to make things nice and flat and even. We'll go with the same grit that we finished the jig flats earlier with. So let's go ahead and put that on there, and we'll sand her flat. Alright, and it doesn't take much just to get that everything sanded off all nice and even. So right there you can see it's all flush, and then if we just unloosen that nut on there, we can put it up through, and now we have a flat surface. Okay, so another thing that I found out though is that since that edge is so sharp, it could possibly dig in, and it kind of catches on your table. And it doesn't really dig in or anything, but sometimes it can catch. So I kind of take this little ring, or that rim off there. So I'll just take that on like a, I don't know, 110 grit, or it doesn't really matter. I'll just put it on even a rough grit. This is all worn out anyways, but as long as you just take that edge off and get kind of a chamfer, you should be more than okay. So we're just going to turn this on and kind of rotate the piece around just like that and get a nice little chamfer on that edge. Alrighty, there we go. Now if you see around that edge, it's a lot less sharp now, and it's not going to dig into anything or catch when you slide it across your tool rest. So, alright, we have that, and our jig here. So we're just going to put that in there, like so, and cinch it down, like so. And now I'll show you how to use it on the tool rest. Alright guys, now just to show you how to use the jig right here on your tool rest. All I do is I take one of these clamps right here, and you don't have to use this type of clamp, you can use pretty much anything. But what I do is I set both the jig and the knife blank that I'm going to be using, or grinding, right here on the tool rest, and get them pretty close together on that, and start cinching it down. And really get it on there right. Get it in there tight, and it might come out on you. See that popped out just a little bit? So we're just gonna move it just a hair, just like that, and now we're gonna really tighten it down. So it's not gonna move on us, and we won't lose our bevel. So, okay, here's the jig overall, clamp included, and then basically you wanna have it to where your knife blank doesn't run over the top. So you want it to be nice and flat. So, and it is right now. But, okay, now we want a certain bevel for this knife. And I'm not going to grind this whole thing. I'm just kind of want to show you guys how to use it. But if you go ahead and set your point right here. And tighten it down like so. Just tighten it right there. And I'm just going off of whatever. You can have any sort of bevel that you want, but the only thing is you have to keep this edge of your jig down, because there's only one point on the screw right here, because it can wobble each way like this, but if you have it pushed forward, there's no way for it to wobble. Okay, so, and then you'll just be coming through here, taking your passes, just like so. And I'll turn it on and do just a little demo for you. Alright, now, I mean, I just did it for a little bit, but we have a pretty nice bevel line right there. And it depends on which side you're pushing harder. So, like, right here, I pushed a little bit further than this side. So it's not exactly straight, but you can correct that by going back on it. But I'm not going to go ahead and do that. I have another video showing how I do that with the jig. But I figured I'd just make a quick little video of showing you how to make the jig and simply how to use it. So, but yeah, if I wanted to bring this bevel line up here further, then I would just take the wrench right here, loosen it up, and drop it. And then tighten it back up. And that's how you can kind of tinker with your bevel lines. Depending on, I mean, you can get exactly what you want. So, depending on how much you angle this jig. So, if you rock back even further, you can even go further up. But yeah, guys, that's the jig in a nutshell. If anybody wants one of these, I can certainly make one for them. But you can always make one yourself. I personally freehand all my knives right now, so I don't really have the use for jigs anymore. But I can tell you that using the jig at first helped me get to where I am now. So it helped me to freehand, I guess. Going through the motion, like right here, doing the motion, getting the fluidity down, and just the whole motion of everything got me able to do freehanding quite well starting off. So I definitely recommend using this jig to cut in your bevels. So, alright guys, thanks for watching.